friends. I'm Amy Morgan, the feature writer with the Marriage Initiative, and I am just delighted today to introduce you to April Readlinger. She's the executive director with nonprofit CanaVox. The group was formed under the direction of Dr. Annual Samuel in 2013 as a project of the Witherspoon Institute to address the negative impact of the sexual revolutions and the erosion of the marriage culture. CanaVox trains people to lead reading groups to discuss timeless truths about marriage and sexual integrity. CanaVox participants learn how to discuss the challenging topics of our times in a calm, respectful, and thoughtful manner. The group now encompasses 860 trained leaders who run more than 900 groups for adults, students, and teens across 39 U.S. states and 34 foreign countries. April, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, CanaVox is such an interesting and valuable process, but first of all, it has an interesting name. Could you explain the name because it ties in to your mission and what you're doing here?
Yes, absolutely. Cana comes from the biblical reference to the wedding feast at Cana, where Jesus worked his first miracle. And then Vox is the Latin for voice. So when we started off CanaVox, we started off with this tagline that was giving marriage a voice. So we wanted to be able to go out there and really just talk about all the wonderful things about marriage.
I love that. And two, your process is so different from, others that I've interviewed. And it's not a book, it's not a a marriage conference. You have kind of a more grassroots homegrown approach. Tell me about, or tell all of us for our marriage champions, because I'm excited about it. Tell me about how y'all do what you do.
Yeah, so what we decided to do is do a little bit of a different model. So most organizations that talk about marriage, they do great work, they do wonderful work, but they do it a little differently. They go and they organize these big conferences, and they have speakers come, and everyone goes and listens. And it's great, right? You can have a whole day long event where people are giving you the latest statistics about like how marriage is good for you. In fact, I just went to one on Friday night. And these are great, but what we wanted to do is something a little bit different. We wanted to bring people to small groups where they could learn, they could study, they could discuss the topics, and then they would be able to talk about them. And so like we thought it would just have a deeper effect and have really a deeper impact on them personally than just going and passively listening at a conference, right? We wanted to get them together to study and have those conversations where they could really help work out the issues and learn how to articulate things themselves instead of just hearing someone else articulate them.
And what even was, why marriage? Why was this important? This was kind of your whole founding theme, but why was that important to the founders?
Well, it's our belief that marriage is the foundation for society, right? It's the building block for all society. And we were worried and concerned about the erosion of the marriage culture and what had been happening over the past 30, 40 years. And we thought we really need to reach out to all of those people who really it affects the most, right? The moms in the families who are like raising their kids and being affected by all of these things. And we just really wanted to go out and we know that they had the same beliefs we had about marriage, but they were kind of like being put in this position of they're being quiet about it. They weren't talking about it because of all of these cultural influences telling them that their beliefs were wrong, and they're bigoted, or they're just kind of like old dinosaurs with get ahead, get with the program, but we know that's not true. And so we thought we'd reach out to them, and we were essentially preaching to the choir, right? But the choir wasn't singing, so we needed to help make them sing. And we wanted to just give them the information that they needed and help them get together to be able to like learn and get the confidence and be able to talk about these issues to supported their beliefs.
I can see how I would just imagine, of course, being on the team and the choir with you, but with our marriage champions, you get these cultural issues. It seems like every day there's some new idea or onslaught that is the antithesis of the historical, traditional, common sense way that, that marriage and family is depicted. And we're all supposed to drink this Kool-Aid and agree. And we know we don't, but we don't know how to articulate that. And that was your goal, right? Is to give people the tools to understand, and then the words, but to do it. I love how you talk about in a cheerful manner. That's one of the words that is all over your website. Do you want to get into that a little bit more about kind of how your tone and your thought process there?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is one of the most important aspects of CanaVox, right? We call ourselves the cheerful marriage movement. And for me, that was, I think that's my favorite part of CanaVox, because there's so many, I don't know, sort of negative connotations about things out there, right? Everyone's sort of talking about what they're against. I'm against this, I'm against that. We really wanted to talk about what we're for. And we are for marriage. And there are like other negative aspects that like sort of lead into that, but it's really more important that we tell people what we stand for and not what we're against. And we created these 7 cheer points, and they're sort of like our constitution, right, and what we believe in, and we call it what we cheer for. And these are like all of the things that we ask our potential participants to agree with before they join any of our reading groups. Like the first thing we do on our training calls is we say like, okay, these are our cheer points. Let's walk you through them. And the 7 cheer points really address like 7 different areas of human relationships. They really communicate this idea that marriage culture isn't just about marriage, right? It's like all a combination of these issues and relationships that really interact with one another and help create the conditions for a healthy marriage culture. So they're just so essential to us. And I don't know, do you want to go through them? Should we let the listeners hear what they are, or tell them where they can find them?
Well, and you tell them where they can find it, but why don't we go through, I think they're short enough that you could go through them quickly, because I think it's really important that when people are considering perhaps starting a reading group, and we're going to talk too about where you get your information, because I think that's critical and valuable. But I think people should really get this understanding that what you're standing for are the things that marriage champions are also standing for, and we just need an ally. So tell them. I think we're really happy.
Sure. Okay, so first and foremost, marriage is a comprehensive, permanent, and exclusive union between one man and one. We are promoting marriage between man and woman. The second is that every child has a right to a mother and father, and that no one has a right to a child. And this is key as well, right? So much of the culture has gone the shift towards that adults have a right to have a child, but we're looking at it from a different perspective, right? Every child has the right to a mother and father. The third is that family kinship bonds between children, parents, grandparents, and extended family should be protected and preserved, right? So we really want to promote and try to really help the familial structure. Number 4 is that every person has a profound need to be appreciated, known, and loved in the context of authentic friendship. And friendship is just a theme that runs through all of our sessions at CanaVox. It's so, so important for everyone, regardless if you're single, regardless if you're married. Everyone is called to friendship, and we all need it. And so this is such an important point. The 5th cheer point is that every person possesses a unique dignity and is worthy of respect, regardless of sex, age, ethnicity, sexual feelings, race, educational level, or religious or political ideas. And this is another important one. Again, we go back to the part where we're talking about what people are against. We aren't against people with same-sex attraction. We embrace them and we love them. And we want to bring them into our fold and help them. They need friendship too, and they need us. So it's not about being against same-sex marriage. It's really being for marriage between man and a woman. Number 6 is that parents have the right and responsibility to direct and guide the education of their children. Again, this is such a big, important one. We think parents are primary educators of their children, and that they need to have they have the primary say in what happens with their kids with regards to schooling. We can't stress that enough, right? We say this in all of our materials that are for middle school and high school students. We want parents involved in this with us and partnering with us. It's not about us taking over the role of the parent. And then the last one, number 7, is that every person has a right to freedom of conscience, thought, and religion, which includes the freedom to manifest one's religion or beliefs in a public and private way, so as long as these beliefs and practices do not harm others. This goes to freedom of religion, which is essential for the work we're doing, right? Because most of the people in our groups are people of faith. We need to be able to state our faith publicly and not just do it behind closed doors. So these are the 7 cheer points, and I hope I didn't take too long with them.
Oh, no,
I could go on and on, but
but I think it's really important for our marriage champions to understand, again, as they start thinking about maybe starting a reading group, that they know what you really stand for, especially when we're talking about these cultural issues. And, they can be kind of fraught, as we know. And so to know, where you line up. So then you're part of the you're a project under the Witherspoon. As to where do you find your information? Can you kind of tell us like what a reading group meeting would look like, and then where the information comes from?
Okay. So a reading group looks like this. We have a person who is a person or 2 people. Sometimes friends do it as, like a little partnership. They get trained by one of our trainers. It's a remote training. So we would set them up on a Zoom call just like this, and they go through training, and then they would just start their group however they want, right? They could have a group once a month. They could have it once a week. It's really up to the person who is the trained leader. And actually, when I say the word leader, it's a little bit, maybe it's not really a correct designation for that role. It really is a moderator of conversation. So we don't expect the people who get trained to lead groups to be like the teacher. They're not coming in and doing a lecture, and they're not supposed to know everything about all of the issues, right? What they're supposed to do is moderate conversation. And that's something that will come across in the training when they're trained to be a leader. So, you get a group of like-minded friends together in whatever scenario you like, whatever location you like, and then you go through the sessions that we have. And we have the sessions on our syllabus. It's our main syllabus, which is for mothers and fathers. We call it the adult syllabus, but that has 26 sessions, and those materials are all there. We actually have 5 sessions on marriage specifically, and because we are started off essentially as a marriage movement, we start off with on the meaning of marriage. That's our first session. And then we end with the 26th and final session is the magnificence of marriage, which I don't know. I want to say that's my favorite, but then I look at each one and I say like, well, that's my favorite. That's my favorite. They're all so great, but really on the meaning of marriage and magnificent of marriage, sort of like, the bookends to the whole syllabus.
Well, so since the magnificence of marriage is definitely aspirational and will resonate with our marriage champions, tell us what is the content of the session? So help us get a picture of what they're talking about, because obviously in the group, right, there's the facilitator facilitating discussion, but what would they talk about in the magnificence of marriage?
Yeah, sure. So during this meeting, which is, like I said, the last one, and it doesn't have to be the last one. Honestly, we have them set up in a particular order, and we have it done that way because some of them build on the others. But you can really do your group any way you like. If you want to go to that one first, you certainly can do that. But in that session, participants will discuss themes related to the beauty of marriage and of family life, and then the place of family life within the larger context of society. So through all the materials that are there, they'll really have a chance to focus on and reflect on all of these conditions that are necessary for human thriving, and then they also learn about the consequences too, to individuals and society at large when the family begins to break down. So a couple of the materials in there that I'll just highlight. One, which I love and is so beautiful, is this video. And I don't know if you've got to see these, but the Humanum video series. they are just gorgeous. They came out of a 2015 conference that was hosted by the Vatican, where Pope Francis brought in leaders of all faiths and had them focus on marriage and family. And these videos were created, and when I tell you, the imagery is just beautiful, and they have little snippets of commentary from and testimonies from people all around the world talking about marriage and talking about the importance of it in their culture. They're beautiful. So I think there's 5 of those videos, but one of those is in this particular session. The other really great piece in that session is a talk by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, and he gives participants sort of like a historical view of marriage. It's really from like a anthropological perspective, but he concludes with the fact that, and I love this, is that marriage, he says, I'm just going to quote him because I don't want to ruin his quote, marriage is the single most humanizing institution in history. And beautiful and so strong. But again, that talk is just a great piece of that session. And just to go back to a little bit when you were asking about like how the materials get there, this piece, like usually all of our sessions have like an academic piece and then some personal narratives to help bring the academic pieces to life. That piece that I just mentioned by Rabbi Sachs is one of those sort of academic pieces, which gives you the history, which gives you all the facts, and then you put it together with some personal narratives to bring it all have it all come alive.
And that's one of the things you do, right? You and you have another colleague, Katie, that you search. How do you, so each session has a reading list of material that includes both videos, audios, and things to read, correct?
Right.
People would do mainly ahead of time, but maybe watch the video together.
Yeah. So really, again, that's, leaders can do sort of run their groups however they want. What we recommend is that people, all the participants would look at the materials beforehand, like read and then even view the videos beforehand, and then talk about them. Often what happens is most of the people in our groups, they're, moms, dads, they're running their lives and their families, and they're pressed for time. So what happens often is that we view the videos together. In fact, I just came from a group this morning, and it was on the meaning of marriage, the first one, and we viewed the Ryan Anderson video on the meaning of marriage, and then we talked about it and had the rest of the session because a lot of moms had Halloween last night, and so they didn't get it done.
That is very understandable.
Yeah.
Well, and two, you said, you being part two of the Research Institute, it gives really great access to content. Where do you get some of your content? I know you've quoted Brad Wilcox several times, but not every one of our marriage champions may know who he is. So maybe go in a little deeper and where you come up with your content.
Yeah. So you mentioned our amazing academic director earlier, Dr. Anna Samuel, and she has been at the Witherspoon Institute for 20 years now, actually. We just had our 20th anniversary, and she's been there since the beginning. And so she works with a team of our leaders, and they help curate all of these great materials, that they pull from different studies that she'll be aware of, through our connections from the Witherspoon Institute. So Brad Wilcox, like you just said, he's at the University of Virginia. We're in contact with him through all the other programs that we do at Witherspoon. We're also at Witherspoon connected through a foundation called FIHE, which is the Foundation for Excellence in Higher Education. And there's institutes around the country like the Witherspoon Institute, but at a lot of different universities. And so we're in connection with those individuals at those universities. And so really anytime great academic research becomes available on all of the topics that we discuss, they usually come to us and talk to us about it. And then we're usually in close contact with them too. Also, Mark Regneris,
Yes.
Yeah, so we're in close contact with him.
Yes, love him too.
Yeah, exactly. So, being able to be part of that network that Witherspoon sort of is in the midst of, really allows us to get all of this great academic material when it becomes available. And people think of us, when it, comes out, because they know that we are the people who spread it to the general population, right? Like, sometimes the academic material can stay in academia, but what we're trying to get it out there. We're like the mouthpiece for all of it. So we want to spread it and let all of the people who are like, having families and living in the trenches, so to speak. We want to give that information to them. We don't want to keep it just with the academics.
Well, there's a lot of really good marriage research, a lot of things that really
Yeah.
affirm family flourishing, success sequence, and for our marriage champions, I mean, this gives you some real authentic legs to stand on when you are trying to, and then words to say, because as you practice in a reading group, talking with others, it gives you cheerful, pleasant ways to discuss some of these issues that are swirling in our culture and really standing up for marriage. Now, we talked about the reading group for people kind of our age, generally, loosely, since I'm older than you are, but you have several other groups. What do you call them? Several other focused target audiences as well. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the groups for the others that have come along.
Sure. So when we started off with CanaVox, we had the main syllabus, which is we call CanaVox Pro. And then we started with a program we call CanaVox Varsity, which is CanaVox groups for college students. And then shortly after that, we decided that we also needed a syllabus that was a little bit more directed towards people who are young professionals, right? So they're not the married couples or families or their moms doing our pro syllabus, and they're not really college students because they're kind of in between. They're just starting their professional lives, but they don't have families yet. So they wanted to look at issues from a little bit of a different perspective, and read about some different topics. Like dating, obviously, is a big one. The parents, although actually we did put parent dating on our syllabus for parents now, because they are interested in thinking about it in terms of their children. But again, it's from a different perspective, right? And then our fourth program, which we just started a few years ago and has really been the big area of growth for us, is our materials for middle school and high school students. So we're kind of covering like the whole life cycle now, right? We start with kids and parents, and we're going all the way through. So really, at any point in your life, you could really pick up and find a CanaVox group that talks about the sessions that you would be interested in, depending on the season of your life.
Well, and one of the things that you had mentioned about the JV, the younger group, that is taught by the CanaVox, the trained leaders. That's not led by the students, because again, they're more at an information absorbing stage, but they're trying to figure out how to even think about these cultural issues that, not only marriage and what does marriage look like, but gender dysphoria and, all these things that are just slapping them in the face every single day, to have this perspective that is historical definition of marriage. You have a specific way you say that. What is that exactly? Because you don't exactly say a biblical definition, because you include, you're ecumenical, but you have a really great definition. What is it you say? Is it a historical definition or traditional values based on common? You just have a really good way of saying it. I want you to say it.
Yeah. Well, so do you mean for you have to refresh my memory of what I said before.
Well, your
For
perspective, a lot of our marriage champions might come from, they may be a pastor or a church leader. And so, of course, we would say we have a biblical definition of marriage. But you guys are at CanaVox, you're very careful to be ecumenical. And so you said you have a little bit different way of saying it, in a way that is still truthful and authentic, but
right.
yet doesn't turn off somebody immediately.
Right. So we talk about all of our issues, and all of the things we talk about. We come at them from a natural law perspective, right?
Yes.
And so we actually our readings are based on natural law, social science, philosophy, biology, and so we use all of these areas of thought and study to come at the issues, right? So while all the people in our groups, even in our groups for middle school and high school students, are, they come from faithful families, right? They're all people of faith. This is just a different way of looking at the issues, so that we could really engage ultimately with the increasingly secular culture about these issues, right? and they can't say to us, well, that's because, that's from the Bible. And so we don't really care what you say about marriage because it's from the Bible. Well, we actually can say, hey, no, look at this. This is natural law, right? This is biology. This is psychology. This is sociology. These are all of these areas of study or areas of thought that we can tackle the same issue. And then they have to stand back and say, oh, okay, maybe I'll consider that, right?
Yeah, and that gives you really a leg to stand on. So those other areas are in alignment with God's word in the Bible, but yet by just again approaching the issue in a way that does agree with God's word but without slapping them in the face with it, it does open conversation for the secular culture to have that cheerful conversation without an immediate backing away. So I love that. I love that you've done that, and the way that responds. And again, it's the way the JV responded to the desire of the parents to be able to have discuss these issues with their children. They also asked you for another resource. You created a physical resource as well. Will you talk about that in response to the parents asking about how to address sexuality and things with their children?
Yeah. Yeah. So, oftentimes that happens in CanaVox as we're looking for the materials to put into our syllabus. We just feel like there's not maybe an adequate resource out there. And so we take it upon ourselves to create that resource. And this one that you're referring to happens to be our tips for talking to your kids about sex booklet. And it's just a short little primer on for parents on how to talk to their kids about sex through various ages, right? And so it goes from ages 2 to 4, and then 4 to 8, and different all the way up to the teen years. And it's just like a handy guide and gives them some scenarios and some language that they can use and when to talk about certain issues with their kids, because we have this little saying at CanaVox, better 1 year too early than 5 minutes too late. Because you as the parent, you really want to be, you want your kids to see you as the expert or the person to go to for all of these topics, right? You don't want them to hear about one of the, about something about sex from a friend on the playground, because when they have a question about that, then they're going to go to that friend or someone else. But if you're that person who brings up that issue with them first, then when they hear about it from something else, right? Something up comes up, somebody says something that they're not sure about, they're going to go to you because they're going to know you're the one, you're the parent. They trust you the most. And if they know that you're already talking about these things, they're going to go to you and ask you the question. And so that's like one of the main things that we talk about in that book, just the communication aspect with your kids and how it's so important to have these conversations, even at an early age, obviously in an age appropriate way, right? And we talk about that too as well. But it's just so key. And so we wanted to help parents and just give them, again, something short and sweet, right? Because everybody is pressed for time. And it's like a great reference manual too. We have it all like labeled by like the, ages and stuff.
Oh, I love it. And they can find that at your website as well?
They sure can. Yep. They can find it on our website, and it's also available on Amazon.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and again, as you were creating tools, you said questions, and you have an Ask Katie. We've got just a few minutes. Will you tell our marriage champions what Ask Katie is?
Yeah, so the Dear Katie podcast or video blog, I guess we call it now, is webs or videos that we've created where people who are participants of CanaVox or fans of CanaVox have emailed us in questions about various issues that they, struggle with, right? So we have, a bunch of different questions on there, and they cover all of the topics really. In our syllabus, right? So we have questions that cover issues stemming from divorce, issues regarding pornography. We have one on a transgender treatment plan on how, people have questions about that. What is the truth, right? Because you hear so many things out there. What is the plan and what are the problems with it, right? And so we address that. We also have one about, should I attend a same-sex wedding? So Katie and a team of CanaVox leaders answer these questions for our viewers. It's sort of like a modern day Dear Abby column, right? But on video.
Yeah, I just think that's wonderful. And again, created out of a response to give people research, facts, things about the topics, the tough topics of our culture, in a way that then they can use to take out. So, marriage champions, if you've ever wanted to have some better words on your tongue about marriage and these questions, I would encourage you, research CanaVox, go to the website and see if you can get some better ideas. I know I was really intrigued by that. April, thank you so much for being here. We just really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Amy. We appreciate your support, and just thank you again.
Yeah. And as always, marriage champions, if you'd like more information about CanaVox or how to get involved in a reading group, you can find us at marriageinitiative.org.